This is Smiling Sam Alvey, and you're listening to the MMA Think Tank.
You're listening to MMA Think Tank with Jay and Mike.
All right, Mike, we are back, and how have you been, man?
I've been pretty good. I'm just happy we're get another podcast out here, another 2 weeks, got all kinds of stuff to talk about. But I will say this before we really get started, I'm happy that the weather is changing, my friend, because the hot weather was killing a fat guy. Yeah,
I concur. That hot weather was just nuts, and now it's starting to cool off, so that's great. But let's not talk about the weather, Mike. We had something, we've got a great fight card to talk about, and then we got a not-so-great fight card to talk about this week. But let's go ahead and get into, the not-so-great card. And that was UFC Fight Night 93, Mike, Barnett versus Arlovsky. Let's jump into the one fight that I personally, you can disagree with me, but I personally thought was the only really great fight on the card, and that was Barnett versus Arlovsky, of course. So let's jump into that. What did you think about this fight?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was going to be probably the best fight on the card for sure. I mean, you got two, past, former champs, I should say, just former champs, UFC champs that, hadn't fought yet, and we're getting a lot of that, Jay, of course, because of the aging division. So we would have liked to have seen these guys fight, 10 years ago, but we got them now. I love that first, 10 seconds? They were just going rock'em sock'em robots at each other. Both of them, each guy fell from a punch, and then the clinch work and the smartness took over. And Andrei Arlovsky, look at him taking Josh Barnett down in the first round to get that first round. But that second round, I believe it was Josh Barnett was getting taken down again, but was able to flip Arlovsky over and get that mount and finish the round with some punches. And then, of course, in the third, Barnett took him down just skillfully and choked him out. Jay, I was entertained by the fight, especially because of the names. And we finally, like I said, we finally got to see these guys fight each other. But Josh Barnett, I think, is for real and going upstairs. And, man, Arlovsky's lost 3 in a row with 2 knockouts and this submission. And he's going downstairs. What do you think?
Yeah, I'll agree with that, but to a point. I think Andrei Arlovsky is still he's a dangerous man. He's dangerous in that cage. And, one thing that really surprises me about Arlovsky is the fact that he's more durable than I gave him credit for coming back.
Yeah.
And Josh Barnett is a big guy, really strong. And I thought he took a lot of punches from Barnett and did well. Of course, Barnett on the ground is just an animal. And after he was down and had Josh Barnett on top of him, there was just no way of getting out of that, especially when he turned his back to him. It was pretty much over. We saw it coming at that point. But Josh Barnett, you're right. Of course, he's still in the mix, and he's moving up. And, at least we have some people to look forward to watching in this division. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I was worried because Barnett had kind of had a shaky second stint here in the UFC. Kind of going 2-2. He's now 3-2. And I want to go back just for a second and just talk about what you're talking about with Arlovsky. I think he still beats a lot of guys. Don't get me wrong. And I want to say how tough he was in that fight as well to survive. Just that second round with big Josh Barnett on top of you. And, you're not known as a grappler or somebody who does well on the ground. For Arlovsky, that was pretty amazing. So I'm still excited to see what Arlovsky can do. Because remember, he had that 4 wins in a row. Now he's lost 3 in a row. We just don't know. He has that knockout power, like you were talking about. So for me, it was just call it an old timers fight, call it a legends fight. I was excited to see it, and Barnett, finally gets in round 3.
So, how many wins away from a title shot do you think Josh Barnett is?
Well, he's not on a streak quite yet, but if they give him I look at it for the heavyweight division more differently than the other divisions. I mean, if you're a top 10 guy or right around top 10, I think you're always 2 fights away from a title shot.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense, especially in this division, the current state of this division anyway. So,
because a lot of these guys have fought each other now.
Yep.
It's something that hey, Bellator out there with your light heavyweight division, with your Tito Ortizes and Phil Davis and King Mo and these guys. How have they not fought each other yet? Rampage. It's only been Rampage and King Mo fighting each other. But anyway, I digress.
Yeah. Well, if you ain't got much else to say on this fight, let's go ahead and move on to Gustafsson versus Blankowitz.
I think that's pretty much it, man. I don't have much to say, but just a good scrap.
Yeah, very good scrap. I thought definitely it woke me up during this fight card for sure. And the reason why it woke me up is because of our next fight, Gustafsson versus Blankowitz. Of course, we talked last night, and we both kind of came away with the decision that Gustafsson sort of played it safe.
Yeah, he stood with Jan, a decent amount of time, but Jan's he's a really good, well-rounded guy, but mostly known for his striking. So Gus was a smarter guy to take it to the ground. I didn't really see him do much on the ground other than land some strikes, which is good, but I didn't see him trying to really finish the fight. And I believe in the third round, it was actually stood up, but Gustafsson took Blachowicz down again. So it was really just it's what a lot of us thought it was going to be, which is just a showcase fight for Gustafsson, get him back into the mix. So I'm excited for Gustafsson finally to get a win after losing 2 in a row, which 2 in a row wasn't really bad, of course. It was Daniel Cormier and Anthony Johnson.
Yeah. It's just one of those fights where I just expected more, I guess, from Gustafsson. And I didn't get that. We didn't get the classic battles that he puts on sometimes. And it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way, I guess.
Yeah, well, you know what? What I noticed was I didn't notice him throwing the jab a lot in his movement. A lot of stuff that makes him great, just in general. But what he's shown in the tougher fights, he didn't do a lot of that.
Yeah.
He was kind of just hanging around, waiting to take him down.
Yeah, his setups and then leading to the kicks and everything else that he throws. It just wasn't there this time, and that was unfortunate.
My guess is he just wanted to make sure he got that win, because if he lost 3 in a row, he wouldn't be outside the top 10, but he'd be at least a couple years away from getting a title shot. And to lose to a guy like Blachowicz, who's not really in the top 10, he's close to it, but this is really a good fight for Blachowicz to see where he stands against some top guys. I mean, I think he's fighting a level above where he should be, obviously, with Gustafsson. But if he would have, kept Gustafsson, watching and it was a tough fight, you would have thought, hey, this Jan Blachowicz is a decent guy. Let's give him some better opponents. But I think we see now that he's pretty good where he is now. He's gonna have a couple more fights before he can get to the top 10, top 5. Yeah,
definitely. And Gustafsson now, we see him going, probably a title contender soon, maybe a couple of fights, a couple of wins.
Yeah, if I actually have something we can talk about if you want to go into Ryan Bader, because I think he and Ryan Bader should fight.
Oh, that would be a good test for both of them, honestly. So let's go ahead and get into that. We had Ryan Bader versus Latifi. And, of course, if you guys remember on the last podcast, I picked Latifi to win this fight probably by KO, I think. But didn't happen. Almost happened, but it didn't happen. So let's go ahead and talk about this fight, Mike.
Yeah, I picked Ryan Bader to win, but it was by, I believe, decision, because I just didn't think either of these guys were, I thought they're great fighters, but I thought they might cancel each other out. Jay, I do agree with you, though. If Latifi was to win, it was going to be by knockout, and we almost did see it. But Ryan Bader he actually got the knockout of Latifi in round 2 by just a great knee, a great standing knee. Basically, Latifi was coming in with a shot. And Bader timed it well. It was very similar to Chad Mendes versus Jose Aldo, their first fight, where he just went back like a shotgun blast. They went back. The way I saw it looked like he went back faster than he should have. And I remember thinking that on the Aldo fight, but I guess it's how it is when you get hit by a knee when you're coming in. But just a quick recap besides that. kind of like we thought. The wrestling was kind of canceled out. They both kind of, got into a clinch or shot, but they both would stop each other. So they had to throw punches most of the time. But Latifi actually did drop Bader in round 1, but Bader was up pretty quick. So yeah, but round 2, like I said, the knee, that was the fight I was kind of looking forward to the most. Not much more than Josh Barnett and Arlovsky, because they're future, at least Barnett to me is a future Hall of Famer. Arlovsky, I'm not sure I'll have to think about, but still a great fighter. And because for me, I wanted to know where Ilir Latifi was and where Ryan Bader was in their careers, respectively. Ryan Bader's getting older, and he still hasn't got that title shot yet. If he loses to Latifi, this is one of those times where, okay, maybe Latifi's on the come up and Ryan Bader's on, kind of going down a bit. But Ryan Bader showed again why he's still a perennial top 10 guy, why he's still out for the title by beating him. And so Gustafsson fighting Bader, I think, is a really good show to show where both the guys are at. Yeah,
I agree. But about Arlovsky, I think that he will be a Hall of Famer just on name recognition alone. He's just, everybody. He's a household name with the MMA community. So I think he'll get in there.
Yeah, it depends on, how you look at the both the things. One is like some people get in there because of their overall, career, and they fought in the UFC and did decently, and so they're in. And there's some people that it's just based off just the UFC alone. And if UFC alone, I completely believe that he should be in there. But I'm not sure how many people, and I'm sure there's some, such as yourself, that will say, well, does he deserve to be in there or not? But when it all comes down to it, I would put my submission in for the Pitbull for sure.
Yeah, and as for Bader and that knee, the knee connected. But it looked to me as if he was throwing a kick, and it was just awkwardly placed. It seemed that Latifi was coming in, and it just so happened to hit his knee. But it looked like a kick he was throwing. I don't know if it looked like that to you, but that's the way it looked to me. So,
it just looked like a regular knee to me. He didn't say he was throwing a kick, but you know what? You might just want to let sleeping dogs lie. If you were going to try to kick him and end up being lucky, you might just not want to say that. So I hear you on that.
Yeah. But that aside, hey, he got the knockout and the win, and Bader, it's looking up for him now. And I think the Gustafsson fight with Bader sounds excellent.
And for Ilir Latifi, this is also just proof still that he hasn't have it yet. He hasn't beaten a big name yet. He beats everybody else, but he hasn't beaten a big name yet. So give him a couple more fights of just your standard top 15 unranked guys, and then see what he does after that.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, Mike, moving on from UFC Fight Night 93, let's go ahead and talk about what happened a week ago. I think it was one of the best cards we've seen this year. It was really just fun. It was a fun card. And, of course, that's UFC on Fox 21, Condit versus Maia. What did you think about these fights?
I loved this card. I thought the whole main card was great. Some of the prelims were good too. I'm sure we're going to talk about some of the prelims, or at least one of the prelims. But I guess we'll start with Damian Maia and Carlos Condit. I did not see it coming the way it happened within less than a minute. Or maybe not less than a minute, but really early in round 1, the rear naked choke that Carlos Condit put on that Damian Maia put on Carlos Condit. Now, I made a joke. I make jokes about how Damian Maia has like a magical little finger that if he touches you with it, he gets on your back and chokes you out. And that's I make jokes about that.
Yep.
And that's what happened almost, it seemed like. I mean, Carlos Condit is one of the greatest fighters of his generation, of currently now. I know he's thinking about retiring again. I hope he doesn't. But to see Damian Maia basically just walk over there, kind of shoot in. And I talked about how Damian Maia's wrestling is so underrated. And he was able to take Carlos down and just move, to his back and then get the choke. It was crazy. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on his wrestling. Very underrated. Carlos Condit is a dangerous, dangerous man. And for him to be able to go over there, take him down the way he did, and just smother him, just proves what an amazing Brazilian jiu-jitsu artist Damian Maia is. And nobody can touch him in that department, Mike. Nobody.
And I found it interesting that it was against the cage too. So you've got Carlos who could push off the cage or use the cage to his advantage if he wants to, and that didn't even help him. It was just crazy. Damian Maia, does he leapfrog Stephen Wonderboy Thompson for the title shot? I don't like these kind of leapfrogging type things. I think Wonderboy already fought, showed that he is supposed to be the next guy. I think you give it to Wonderboy, then give it to Damian Maia. Look, Damian Maia was so emotional in the cage, man. He was so happy. I mean, Jay and I have talked about this, and you guys have heard us talk about this. Well, Damian Maia talked about it, and that was this. That he believes Carlos Condit won that fight against Robbie Lawler. He felt that he beat the current champ.
Yeah.
And it's something that Jay and I love about Damian Maia, obviously. And the guy's 38 years old. I think I texted you this, Jay, or I told you, I'm not sure, that he's rocking the dad bod. He's not super. So, I mean, he's obviously not out of shape, but, he's just this guy that is made for jiu-jitsu, of what jiu-jitsu is all about, which is a guy who doesn't look like maybe he can, like, put up this fight, but that ends up, putting down the guy who does know how to fight, basically.
Yep.
And that's what Damian Maia has been doing. Jay, do you think he should leapfrog Wonderboy, or
no.
should they fight? Or
no, I think Wonderboy has already earned it, and I'm not saying Damian Maia hasn't earned it. He's on a 6-fight win streak. He's had great opponents. He's beaten, but you know what? We've already decided that Wonderboy had the next shot. Let's go ahead and give that to him. And then after that fight, let's let Damian Maia fight whoever wins.
Yeah, he wants to wait. Now, I agree with him. I would wait if I was him.
I agree 100%. He's earned it. He's deserved it. And if they pass over Damian Maia now, after beating Carlos Condit the way he did, it would be a travesty, really. It would be just insane to me.
Yeah, and what worries me, though, is the age.
It doesn't worry me at all, because this guy just destroyed three people in a row that are just amazing fighters.
No. I don't mean his physical attributes. I mean just the promoting attributes. He's 38 years old. He speaks English very well, but I don't know if the organization wants to have him as champ. They might be okay with him having him as champ, but I think for sure would rather have Wonderboy as champ, as a flashy guy who knocks people out. This is just kind of, quote unquote inside baseball talk right here. And we don't know how much longer he has as a champion, but he certainly deserves to get that crack. And it comes down to this: if you can get Maia stay away, land punches, or even just get in his face and land punches, you're going to win this fight. But as soon as he gets your back or gets you down, any of these guys, Tyron Woodley, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, those guys are probably going to lose. It's all going to be come down to style makes fights.
Well, Rory McDonald showed that against Damian Maia, keeping him at bay with his kicks, with his punches. But here's the thing. Damian Maia looks to have gotten better since he fought Rory McDonald. His wrestling seems to have improved, as far-fetched as that sounds. He just looked incredible the way he came in on Carlos Condit, because I put Carlos Condit over Rory McDonald in terms of skill right now. So Damian Maia, to me, and what you touched on with I understand how the UFC and a business is going to want to be running, the show, and they want somebody in there who's marketable, and I understand all that, but I think they need to put all that aside and put the people that deserve to be in place where they should be.
100% agree.
Because if I want to watch the best fighters in the world, I want to watch the best fighters in the world. I don't want to watch whoever or whatever company wants me to believe is the best fighter in the world based on how much marketability they have. So that's all I'm trying to say.
I say leave that to Bellator. If I wanted Tyron Woodley fighting Nick Diaz, which, look, I would watch that fight. Sounds like a great fight. But, that's someone like Bellator would put that on after Nick Diaz has got, lost 3 in a row or something like that. So the fact that I'm just kind of going back to a couple weeks ago where, Tyron was talking about how he'd rather fight Nick Diaz and some of these other people, and that's just ridiculous. But, man, Damian Maia I've been singing his song for so long. I'm happy he's there. I like both him and Wonderboy. I don't want to see either of them lose, but you know what? Where I'm kind of pushing Carlos Condit away right now in the discussion because he lost, but I'm going to bring him back. Where does he go from here? I think he's going to retire. I really do. I think he almost did before. I think he really is doubting himself now. Maybe he's not at the level where he thinks he should be, like he's talked about on the post-fight conference. but I still think he beats most of the guys in the welterweight division. And I just hope he doesn't hang it up.
No, definitely. I think he beats most of the guys. Agree with you on that. I don't agree, however, that he's going to hang it up right now, because when you hear him talk in any interview, he's always talking as if he has nothing else to do. Like he's got to figure things out. And I don't think he has anything figured out outside of mixed martial arts. He's good at it, as he says. He's really good at it. And I think he stays. I think he stays for at least a couple more fights. And I don't think he wants to go out on a loss as well.
Yeah, good point, especially on the loss. But do you think he waits like 6 months, a year? Because this time was about 6 months.
I think he gets back in there before 6 months. I say he fights again within 4 months. I think he's gonna be gone for a while, though. I think. Really? I don't think so. Only based off of because he almost didn't come back this time. If this was a whole new thing, if he had never, had the I may not come back unless it's for a title shot after he lost to or after he was given the loss to Robbie Lawler, I would be singing a different tune. But because he's got that already as a prerequisite to the discussion, he's already having those feelings. And now this happens. The only thing I think that's stopping him from that's keeping him to come back is, like you said, you don't want to go out on a loss. And we'll talk about that later with Joe Warren. But and money. I don't think he stays out longer because he needs to get paid.
Yeah. I think he's one of those guys that will never have to worry about money. I don't mean lots of money, but like he's always going to be able to open up a gym or just coach at Jackson Winklejohn and make a decent amount of money for his family. Now it's going to be much less than what he was getting paid, I'm sure. He's going to have to refinance his house or get a smaller house or all those types of things. But that's going to come into.
I hear you.
Too.
I hear you, but it just sounds like to me when I watch him and I hear him, it sounds like he doesn't have anything else figured out other than the fight game. So we'll see what happens with Carlos. Yeah. I say he comes back before 6 months. We will see.
I hope he does.
I love to watch the guy fight, so I hope he doesn't retire yet, because as we, of course, get older, we must retire at some point, and just don't want to see it yet with him. Moving on from that, Mike, if you have nothing else to say on the fight, I don't know if you do.
The only thing I would have said was, where do you think he should fight if he comes back? Do you think he should fight somebody just that's got a name that's kind of like, been losing a little bit, like say Johnny Hendricks, or do you think you give him another? I don't think you give him another top guy. Now, I think ask for a top guy. I guess you could give it to him if you're the UFC, but I would give him somebody like, somebody who has a name like Johnny Hendricks.
Johnny Hendricks, yeah, Johnny Hendricks is perfect. That's a perfect candidate. Again, though, he's fighting another guy that's sort of, well, I don't want to say that Carlos is scatterbrained, but we know that something's going on there with Johnny. And they both need to prove themselves at this point, and that would be a great fight matchup to put on. So, yeah, Johnny Hendricks.
Sounds good.
So, next we had Oliveira versus Pettis. And, man, what a fight this was. I wasn't expecting this at all. I actually had Oliveira winning this fight, Mike, going in.
Yeah, I picked Oliveira as well. We were simpatico on that. I actually thought that this fight was the fight of the night. We're going to get to Jim Miller and Joe Lozon. That was fight of the night officially. But this fight with Anthony Pettis and Charles Oliveira, first of all, Pettis submits Oliveira by rear naked choke in the third round. But, man, what a great back-and-forth fight through the whole fight. Yep. I mean, Oliveira would take some punches, throw some, and get Pettis down, and Pettis would get a reversal like in every round, it seemed like. And then just out of nowhere, Oliveira tries to take him down again. And much like when Pettis fought Melendez in that title fight, he got that rear naked choke off the takedown. And Oliveira, he tapped fairly quickly. He was exhausted, man. Both guys, they just gave it all. I wish I could describe the fight more than just back and forth. I mean, I guess the only thing left to really talk about is this how great, to me, Oliveira was after he took that body kick. I think it might have been a liver kick, and he was hurt for a long time. But even with Pettis, man, he came in losing 3 in a row in his debut at featherweight. We both wrote him off on this, and he showed us that, man, he's got something still left to give. And remember, this guy's never been submitted or knocked out. So we've got Anthony Pettis now, on a march towards the belt at featherweight, having just beat the number 6 guy.
Yeah. Well, you're right. This fight had everything, really. It had great scrambles on the ground. It had great, back and forth, standing on their feet. But moreover, what this fight showed me with Anthony Pettis is the fact that this is the right weight class for him, because he was small in the 155 division. Here, he looked much bigger than Oliveira. He looked bigger, he looked stronger, and he showed that. And I think he's benefiting from this size. I think he should stay here, and he's going to do very well.
Yeah, I think so too. You're talking about how he looks better here. This is the first time I've seen him actually that I can recall, and I realized he's been at WC forever and been fighting here now forever. First time I remember seeing him being put in a position like having his back taken like that and being able to reverse in a body triangle.
Yeah, body lock.
Triangle.
Yeah,
that was huge to me. I mean, that was. I don't know what they're teaching at Duke Rufus and at I know he also went a little bit to Jackson Winklejohn, but teach all the fighters need to go figure out how that happened.
Yeah. When he had the body lock, when Oliveira had it on him, I thought there's no way he was going to get out of that. I thought it was going to be possibly over. And when he turned around with the body lock there, I was like, well, how do you do that? Because most fighters can't do that. So
right.
It's pretty interesting.
You have to attack the leg and start missing that before you can do that.
He did it quickly, though, like it was nothing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like most fighters, they'll attack the leg or the foot, get a little bit of wiggle room. But he didn't even do that. I want to talk about Charles Oliveira for a second too. The guy is such a great fighter, but Jay, I think that this might be where he's going to be forever in this division. I thought if he was to defeat Pettis, even though Pettis was lost 3 in a row, if he was to put away a guy like Pettis, a former champ, a guy who's never been finished in this type of fight, I thought we might see Oliveira march towards a title fight possibly or get close to it. I know he's ranked number 6, so I'm not trying to say that that he's ranked number 10 or 11 or 12, but I guess to me it kind of solidifies that Oliveira is a great fighter, an exciting fighter, a fighter I love to watch, a fighter I have yet to meet that I'd love to meet, but I don't think he's going to go anywhere past where he's at.
Yeah, well, it's not like he's been on a long losing streak or anything. I mean, he's lost one, won one, lost one again here. Yeah. And before that, 4-fight win streak. And against good guys. So I just don't see Oliveira going away or anything, but I agree with you. I think he stays right where he's at. I think he's just middle of the road here in this division. This division is stacked, and I think that's the real problem here.
Yeah, if he fights, does he beat somebody like Holloway? Does he beat somebody?
Yeah. He doesn't beat Holloway. He doesn't beat, if he ever comes back, McGregor. He doesn't beat Aldo. He doesn't beat Pettis now. So, yeah, I mean, he's stuck in the middle.
Yeah, I'd like to see him fight Ricardo Lamas. See what if he can beat Lamas. Like we've talked about before, he's kind of our gatekeeper to the top 5.
Yeah.
And go from there. But Pettis, I'm excited. I was excited to see Pettis win, even though I like Oliveira better, because this sport to me is so exciting that one of the reasons why you'll hear me kind of root more for veterans or when you listen to like me and Jay talk, he's more. Well, Jay, I don't want to put any words in your mouth, so please correct me if I'm wrong. But to me, I'll say for me, I latch onto the veterans a lot longer, a lot harder. So even if I think they should retire or they're not going to make a run, I'm all for seeing them fight continuously. Like even the main event that we just talked about for Fight Night 93, is Barnett and Arlovsky going to fight for the title anymore? Probably not. Barnett might, but to see these guys still fight, once they're gone, they're gone. You look at BJ Penn. I know he's coming back, but he's really gone. Matt Hughes is gone. GSP was gone. He's coming back. These guys have a hard time, staying gone. So once they're gone, they're gone. So
yeah.
So I'm excited to see, now what happens next.
Yeah, and it's nice to see Pettis get in that win bracket again because for so long he was so dominant, even at 155. But it just seemed that those guys got better, bigger, stronger. I don't know what it was, but something happened within that division, and Anthony coming to 145, winning this fight is huge. And who knows? I think maybe a couple more wins and people will start throwing title, shots for Anthony.
And I think they should because he just beat the number 6 guy. Yep. It is tough though because, like you said, losing 3 in a row. Now does he have to win 2 in a row? I'm sorry, 3 in a row now to actually get a shot or even get a sniff of a shot? Because it's kind of tough to have some guy lose three in a row. But it was in a different weight class.
Yeah, I think winning 3 sounds about right for Anthony Pettis.
Yeah, and a new weight class for him. So.
Yeah, so I think 3 sounds about right. Because this division is so stacked, man. It's really one of the best divisions in the UFC. So.
Well, someone who's one of the best people in their division, Paige Van Zandt knocks out Beck Rawlings by switch head kick in round 2. If you guys didn't see it, it's all over the place on YouTube, and because it was the Fox card, so you don't have to worry about it having to be on Fight Pass or something. But man, it was basically one of those things where I was confused at what Paige Van Zandt was doing, because look, Paige Van Zandt usually comes forward. She's a bulldog. If she doesn't get the finish, she beats you by decision. But she was jumping around the cage, She was just sticking and moving and not really confusing Beck Rawlings. But Beck Rawlings was kind of like, what are you doing? And, throwing a couple of kicks here and there. But she was really just setting it up for a possible head kick that she did land in that round 2. Jumped in the air, threw one leg towards the body, the other leg to the head. It was a beautiful kick. And with Beck blocking the one to the body, then Paige landed to the head, knocked her out. Basically, she fell over on her side, and there's a couple of hammer fists that were inconsequential, didn't be needed, but you go till you finish till they stop it, and then they stopped it.
Yeah, and the way she was jumping around and stuff during this fight, it's almost as if she was showcasing her dancing skills. She was just very light on her feet, jumping around, doing all this stuff that wasn't typically Paige Van Zandt, and I didn't like it at first. I really didn't like it. But when she ultimately landed that kick, I couldn't help but love it, because I was like, oh, there it is, And one thing I told you after the fight, I was really bummed, was the fact that I didn't get to hear Joe Rogan screaming, because I know he would have screamed during that part. Yeah. And because Joe Rogan no longer does all the, fight cards and stuff, and he pick and chooses now, that was missing from that. But anyway, Van Zandt's kick there was pretty interesting too, because I saw a picture of it online, and the picture depicted what happened. It showed her jump up with one leg, and kick to the body, and then throw the other kick to the head. But when it landed, that kick to the head, her other leg was still in the air. Yeah. So she was still in the air, and it was a beautiful thing to watch. It was really crazy. Beck Rawlings, I had her winning this fight. I thought that she was going to be the bigger bully, and I thought she was going to be able to take out Paige Van Zandt. Didn't happen. Paige Van Zandt showed her durability, Mike. Man, she's a scrapper.
Well, I did pick Paige to win. I picked it exactly like that. I picked a second round switch hit. No, just kidding, of course. I did pick Paige Van Zandt. But I thought it was going to be the old Paige Van Zandt, the Paige Van Zandt that gets up in your grill and won't leave you alone. But my guess is she found out that doesn't work all the time against some fighters like Rose Namajunas. So I like the fact she's switching it up.
Yeah.
Now she will figure out where she's gonna be with her style. Jay, you and I, we talk about all the time about she's still young. She's so she's young in the sport, so she's still not even close to where she's going to be. But I was excited for the win, especially since she didn't have a lot of time to be coached after Dancing with the Stars. I listened to an interview of Justin Buchholz, Team Alpha Male's head coach, of course, and has been a coach there forever, but now he's the head coach. About how it was tough not having the right amount of time, but they did what they could, and it came to fruition. So I was very excited.
Yeah. No, it was pretty amazing to see that kick and it land. It was crazy. But kudos to Paige Van Zandt. She won this fight against a really tough girl in Beck Rawlings.
Yeah, talking to crazy, man. You and I are agreement on this. Guys out there listening, and ladies, of course, do you agree that Jim Miller beat Joe Lozon? Because Jay and I agree it was a fantastic fight. We picked Joe Lozon to win this fight. It was a great fight to kick off the main card. To me, it comes down to Lozon got the takedowns in each round, but on the feet, Jim Miller was winning the stand-up. He wasn't close to knocking out Joe Lozon in each of those rounds, but he was winning the stand-up. So I was kind of going with Joe Lozon. I think 29-28, if I remember right. Jay, is that what you went with?
Yeah, I went with 29-28, and I think that even with Miller winning on the feet, it was still close on the feet. It wasn't like by a wide margin.
Exactly.
And the takedowns, to me, it solidified the win for Joe. And when Lozon wasn't, when his hand wasn't raised, I was just, honestly, I was kind of ticked off. I was like, because I'm getting upset with these judges lately. Like, before you talked about this a few podcasts ago, how there has been more split decisions lately, but they're going to the right person. And now it seems that we're getting those just the opposite. And here we have a case where Jim Miller wins against a guy that clearly won. I don't know. That's the way I see it. That's the way you see it. And other friends I've talked to saw it the same way too. So I don't know what the judges are looking at anymore. All I got to say is these fighters, they just have to prove it in the cage, and they've got to win. They've got to at least KO the guy or submit the guy, because going to a decision now it's more, it's got to be more stressful than ever for these guys, to be honest.
And what's interesting is the percentage numbers that came out on a poll, which was, now some of these percentages are specific, which is 66% of the judges thought that Jim Miller won. Only 7% of the fans and 11% of the fans thought that he won. Mm-hmm. So I mean that tells you something right there, which is pretty crazy. So the argument for Miller, and I guess maybe for the people that did think that Miller won, is that off his back he was landing some. And Joe Lozon didn't land too much on top. And there's one time that Joe got on top, but he didn't land a takedown. It was a slip or something. Mm-hmm. But even so, I just looked at it the same way as Lozon. He got the decision because it's mixed martial arts. I got to view everything, every aspect of the game, not just striking. And was this striking better than this grappling? I got to put it all together in one pot.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't fight of the night, as it was called. That goes to Oliveira and Pettis, but hey, it is what it is, and where these guys go from here, Mike, is really where they're at now. I mean, they don't really move up, and they're just there. A couple of veterans that duked it out once more, and unfortunately, the wrong one got the win. So.
Yeah, and they did it in their last fights too. I mean, Lozon fought, Diego Sanchez, a veteran that's not, that's kind of on the way down, or is not going to be going for a title anymore. And Jim Miller at UFC 200 also, he knocked out Takano Argomi, a guy who was once, a great fighter who's fallen on hard times. So, I don't know. I'm not sure. Well, we'll see what happens with who's his. I'm drawing a blank right now, but anyway, there's another Evan Dunham. We'll see what happens with Evan Dunham, who's looked better and better. I think if Evan Dunham wins his next fight, maybe you give the winner of Evan Dunham against Miller or Lozon, depending on who the UFC truly thinks won. That's maybe what I'd go with next.
Yeah.
Something we also had that wasn't on the main card, but was the Fox Sports prelim of the night, basically, was Smiling Sam Alvey fighting Kevin Casey, which, at first I wasn't sure how it was going to go. But, of course, Smiling Sam, if he gets a knockout a lot of the times. And guess what? Smiling Sam, he was smiling again with drop to drop in Kevin Casey. So, Kevin Casey, he's not the best fighter. So I realize that it's not a big feather in Smiling Sam's cap. But you know what? Smiling Sam continues to look better and better after losses. Yeah, and I believe he's he's back on a streak now. Hopefully he gets back into the top 10, fight some better guys. So that I was excited to see that. Jay, what did you think?
Yeah, I'm glad our boy Sam Alvey, who we've interviewed here on this podcast before. If you guys haven't checked that out, go ahead and go to our backlog. We have him there, interviewed him, and 2-fight win streak, submission, and now a knockout. It's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome, and I'm glad he got this knockout because, well, I don't want to say he needed it, but he needed it. Yeah. He really did.
Well, I also liked it. I don't know if you guys missed the fight. If you watch a replay of it, this may not be on the replay of the fight, but him talking about his wife, about how instrumental she is in his career, not just being able to take care of their kids so that he can train. That happens in a lot of fighters' relationships with their girlfriends or their wives, but she takes care of his whole just career.
Yeah.
She I'm pretty sure we probably went through her to get the interview, and she sets up all his fights, where he's going for the day, what clothes he's gonna wear. I mean, all that stuff. He doesn't have to worry about a thing. And when you have someone like that by your side that has your back, and you don't have to worry about a thing, that just makes it so much easier to do your job, whatever it is.
Yeah, and you can really see that Sam Alvey really appreciates her, and because this isn't the first time he's talked about her after a fight. He's done it time and time again. This guy, I love the relationship that they have, and it shows there. She's in the corner. She's his manager.
Yeah,
that's right. She's everywhere. It's amazing. So I'm very happy for Sam Alvey.
For sure. That's why he's smiling.
Yep. So let's go ahead, Mike. Let's go on to Bellator 160, and let's talk about the man, Ben Henderson versus Patricio Pitbull. Man, I was very disappointed in this fight, and of course, you know why. Tell them why.
Yeah, I love you, Benson Henderson. You're one of my favorite fighters ever. But can you please fight like a mixed martial artist? Can you please go back to the days where you would wrestle and punch and kick and submit and just do whatever? But we're going to get a little more into that in a second. I'll just go ahead and tell you what happened in case you guys didn't see the fight. Benson Henderson gets a TKO over Patricio Pitbull Freire in round 2. Well, he didn't. It happened because of a check kick in round 1. Yep. But in round 2, basically, Pitbull had toughed it out for a while to a point where he just couldn't. And he waved off Ben, waved off the it might have been Big John, I'm not sure, saying he couldn't fight anymore. Yeah. So Pitbull actually had fought for a while after getting his leg busted up by actually broken by a checked kick in the first round by Benson Henderson. Now Benson Henderson, that's good for him. He gets that win. He's going to fight Michael Chandler for the belt now. But Benson Henderson didn't look good. Patricio Pitbull didn't look good. They didn't throw. They didn't throw very much, and when they did, not much landed. They walked around most of the time. For both guys, Benson, if you've got your guy near the cage, you should shoot in and take him down, or something. And if I'm Patricio, now I'm not sure when he got hurt in the first round, but once some guy gets you against the cage, you now have the better opportunity with the smaller reach to unleash your firepower. But none of that happened.
Yeah.
So
and it's not that they looked bad to me. It looked like they were sparring. Okay. And again, Ben Henderson, I echo your thoughts, Mike. Wrestle again, because that's where you were dominant. When you would wrestle guys, along with using your jabs and setting up the takedowns and stuff, that's where your bread and butter was. And now it seems that you've gone away from that. And it's like he's gone completely away from that, Mike. He never looks to wrestling anymore. And it's unfortunate because that's the Ben Henderson we all knew and loved.
Yeah, I'm not going to sing about Ben Henderson as I did BJ Penn, but I will say that basically that when you're the bigger guy, and Benson Henderson wasn't this, and you get some guy to the cage, you either got to push up on him and sap his strength or take him down. Yeah. I just don't understand why once he got him there, he didn't use his size and reach to do it. But
I don't know.
Jay, do you have anything else to talk about this other than
not really
him fighting Michael Chandler?
Honestly, we can talk a little bit about that and just say, I mean, we both kind of agree. If he fights the way he did against Patricio, he's going to lose to Michael Chandler.
Yeah, that's going to come up in the news too. That they're going to be on the same card with a couple other great guys. So let's go ahead and move on then to something that. Man, I certainly, I was right. You and I were right about Benson Henderson getting the win, but you were right and I was wrong about Georgi Karakhanyan. Less than a minute, Karakhanyan catches Bubba Jenkins' leg and then knocks him out square with a punch in less than a minute. Yeah. It was pretty amazing. I mean, Bubba Jenkins is a great grappler. I mean, he's a wrestler that, NCAA Division I wrestler. And I thought that maybe that this time in this rematch that Bubba would be able to be the better guy this time. He was actually worse.
Yeah. I just based my pick basically on their last fight and just decided to go with Karakhanyan again. I didn't know he would knock out Jenkins that fast, though. I didn't see that coming. Jenkins is a strong guy. You know, he's a big guy. He's not somebody I would think that would go out that quickly, but Karakhanyan's a strong dude. And, hey, he got it done. And where does Karakhanyan go from here, man? Because he's moving up.
Yeah, I think he's a win or two away from fighting for the title again. He had a string of bad luck.
Yeah.
When he lost a couple in Bellator, when he came back to Bellator after he had lost in a fight in WSOF. But now he's looking a lot like that guy who was in Bellator in his first stint, and the guy that looked great when he won the WSOF belt just a few years ago. So I'm gonna chop up maybe those losses previously. Well, I'm gonna say this is some bad luck. I mean, it happens in the sport. You look at we talked about Anthony Pettis. Anthony Pettis was never knocked out or really destroyed in any of those fights that he was in, but it just didn't fall his way. And then you see how he looks in his last fight. Well, we can kind
of. Ooh, I lost you there, Mike.
He's always been one of the best out there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I lost you.
Now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, Mike, Karakhanyan, he's moving up. So Jenkins, though, unfortunately for him, it's the back of the line. All right, Mike. Well, let's get into some news.
News Corner.
So what news do you have for us this week?
So in the news, we've got quite a bit of stuff from all three of the major promotions. Let's just start off with the WSOF. The Justin Gaethje versus Ozzy, the Gulubagov fight at WSOF 33 has moved from September, I should say this month, to next month, to October 7th officially. And so the rest of the card is now official as well. The additions are pretty good, especially for the WSOF. You're looking at David Branch. He's fighting on the card. He's going to leave his middleweight belt at home, but he's going to put his lightweight belt on the line against submission expert Viggy Magalhaes. Vinny Magalhaes, if you don't know too much about him, he was in the UFC for a bit. He's getting better. He's getting a lot better now in the WSOF. Jason High, he's going to face BJJ standout Yael Zeffirino, who, if you guys remember, Zeffirino was the runner-up in the one-night 8-man tournament back at WSOF 25. If you won that tournament, you fought Justin Gaethje for the belt. John Doomsday Howard, he's going to face Abubakar Nurmagomedov. I'm not sure if he is related to Khabib or not, but he will be fighting John Doomsday Howard. This Nurmagomedov is he's got 7 TKOs and 3 submissions in his 12 wins, and he's 3-0 in the promotion. So all these fights they're decent guys in the WSOF fighting some standout guys, your former UFC stars. And finally, rounding out the card, Brian Foster, who did win that one-night 8-man lightweight tournament. He'll actually face submission ace Luis Firmino, who's also 3-0 in the promotion. So it's a great card. It's a 3-hour night instead of 2 hours. We're getting 6 fights instead of 4, which is great. And I'm interested in all those fights. They're not all going to be great, I'm sure. But, hey, man, 3 hours of MMA, I can get that, Jay.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it's a good card. I'm happy to see Justin Gaethje fighting again. I want to see how he demolishes Ozzy, because he demolishes everybody.
Yeah, he does.
So I think he should just move on and come to the UFC already, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, he's got 1 or 2 fights, I believe, left on his contract. We're waiting for Marlon Moraes to come, then Justin Gaethje. David Branch was actually already in the UFC for a little bit, but now he's really found his niche now in the WSOF. So
yeah, there's lots of great fights on this card, as you mentioned, and yeah, can't wait for it.
Rory McDonald signs with Bellator. Rory McDonald, he's a free agent. He now with Bellator, walking the same line as Benson Henderson did, and Matt Mitrione and Phil Davis, who kicked it off for some of the UFC guys coming over. But he doesn't want just the belt at 170. He wants the belt at 185 as well. Tricky situation, though. He's not going to fight until summer of next year. So that kind of puts a damper on him, on his announcement. Couple of
Ooh.
He walked out.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people I think that don't like him as much as I do. I don't hate the guy. I just don't find him. I think he was a guy they could let go, that the UFC could let go and save some money for the cap, so to speak. I know they don't have a cap, but fighters are still money. So
Yeah. No, I agree. I think Rory was one of those guys who was on the downslope, and he's looking to reinvigorate his career. And I think what better way than to go to Bellator to make money and reinvigorate his career. I think he could definitely win fights over there, and I think that's what he's going to do.
Yeah, he's 29, I think, or at least in his late 20s. So he could just come over to Bellator, win the belt there, maybe the 185 belt as well. But, in a couple of years, not just get the belts, but, tune up on some skills, get reinvigorated, come back to the UFC, and in his, early 30s, possibly be better.
Yeah, that's my thoughts exactly on the guy.
Speaking of somebody, though, who wants to stay in the UFC, and we actually have some of their stats here. Donald Cowboy Cerrone has signed an 8-fight extension with the UFC, and he got his BJJ black belt. So, guys, if you fighters out there in the 171 and the 155 division, if you thought he was great off his back already, he now has a black belt. But, Jay, 8-fight extension for Cowboy. That's music to my ears. That's going to last about 6 months for 8 fights, the way Cowboy fights, of course.
6 months.
But your thoughts?
Oh, I'm glad this guy re-signed. We knew he would. I didn't see him going anywhere. He likes to fight the top competition. He's had a great relationship with Dana and company. I didn't see him going anywhere. And I'm just glad.
I read a thing, something about the. He said something like, me fighting the UFC is like breathing. If I don't fight in the UFC, there was no way he said he was going anywhere else. It's just he's going to be there forever.
Yeah. No, it's exactly what it is. The UFC without Donald Cowboy Cerrone just wouldn't be the same. I know I'm talking real big on Cowboy here, but I can't help it. The guy's a WEC alum, and he's just an amazing fighter. What he's done in the 170-pound division has just been incredible. So I can't wait to see him fight again.
And it'll be interesting if he actually gets the belt at 170 when he couldn't get it both times in the WEC.
Wouldn't that be crazy?
At 155 and the UFC at 155. Guy deserves it, though. Really quickly, though, if we move on to Michael Chandler fighting Benson Henderson, we touched on that, but I just want to throw that out. The rumor out there, and it's getting a lot of buzz, is Cowboy Cerrone fighting Robbie Lawler in New York, and make that happen.
Yeah, that would be pretty interesting for sure.
Let's go ahead and move on, though, since we've got some time constraints here, and we don't know if that's going to happen or not. So, but like I said, Michael Chandler is fighting Benson Henderson. That's going to be at Bellator 163 on November 19th. But also, Michael Venom Page is going to fight Fernando Gonzalez. If that sounds familiar, if you think it already happened, well, you're kind of right. It's now the third time Page versus Gonzalez has been made. But because of injuries, I think that both guys at different times, they've had to, scrap that fight. I'm not too familiar with Gonzalez, except for I know his name. I know he's pretty good, but I looked up his stats on the computer, and basically it's Gonzalez is 25-13. Not that great with that record, but he's 5-0 in Bellator. So, maybe he's a late bloomer. Look, Robbie Lawler was a late bloomer, so maybe Gonzalez is. My quick thing is I'm not picking against Page until he fights somebody of serious stature. Jay, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I think Page right now, you have to go with him if you're going to pick the fight. He's just shown that he's been that guy that's going to win the fight every time now. Fernando Gonzalez, no slouch though, so we'll see what happens here. But I'm calling Page for sure. Yeah,
I wish they'd give him somebody better, but that's something they're going to do.
Me too.
Yeah, give him Paul Daly or somebody. That'd be a great fight. But someone else who's signed, Valentina Shevchenko. If you guys remember her, she's the one that beat Holly Holm in her last fight.
Oh, yeah.
She just signed a 7-fight deal, so it's not just the men the UFC's taking care of the ladies as well. And, I don't know if she deserves a 7-fight deal. I haven't seen her fight that much. I know she deserves to stay in the UFC and get re-signed, so I'm happy about that.
Yeah, I think the performance she put on against Holly Holm shows that she should stay within the UFC. So I have no qualms with the 7-fight deal. Not saying you do, Mike, but 7-fight deal sounds good to me for her.
Yeah, and I think it's good for both ends. The promotion locks down a strong fighter. But on the fighter's end, it really shows they understand now that the promotion they're in likes them, is behind them. So, you're going to fight better. Moving on, we got former Bellator middleweight champ Alexander Shlemenko is back. And remember, he was popped for steroids a couple years back. I think his last fight was against in that one pay-per-view Bellator had where he lost to Tito Ortiz, where he had no reason fighting Tito Ortiz because he was at 205. And he's barely a middleweight at Shlemenko is. But anyway, he's fighting Kendall Grove and in the main event, and Bobby Lashley will be fighting Josh Appelt in the co-main event of Bellator 162. That's on October 21st. I know Lashley pretty well. I know Shlemenko. I know Grove pretty well. I didn't know Appelt too much, so his stats real quick. Appelt is 12-5 and was 3-1 in Bellator in his first run, and this is going to be his first fight back in the promotion. So we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, Bobby Lashley, of course, started out with I believe Strikeforce. I believe he was with them for a while. And he never panned out to becoming the fighter that people thought he was going to become,
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he looked to be one of those fighters that was going to be something special. Just never panned out.
Yeah, he's got the look. He's got the build of the giant heavyweights that was, once Brock Lesnar started tearing it up, that we thought we were going to have. It made Frank Mir put on weight and muscle.
Yeah.
But I mostly seen Bobby Lashley in the fighting on the Axis net fight cards, that kind of stuff, in the regionals, and I caught some of his in Strikeforce, and from the regionals to Strikeforce, didn't learn much, like you said. But he's just a name because he's an ex-pro wrestler, and he's a good dude, good guy. But I'm willing to watch it. So, speaking of other shows that have come back, Tough has started. Tough 24 Tournament of Champions. If you guys haven't watched that, the first episode aired on Wednesday. Basically, we've talked about in the past. Just a quick recap. The UFC has gone out and gotten flyweight champs from all over the world and regional promotions, and they're basically seeded. There's no this one team wins and we pick our fight, and then this and who they want to fight or whatever. No, it's if I win, I'll just say the coaches really quickly. It's Joseph Benavidez and Henry Cejudo. If Henry Cejudo's team wins, well, then he can choose the next fight, but he can't choose who's fighting him.
Yeah.
It's his fighter. It's already locked up in the bracket. So it's a lot more professional because this is for a belt. Jay, did you watch the first episode at all? I did. I thought it was good.
I have not watched it yet.
Well, they've got replays all the time on FS2 as well as FS1. And I believe they always recap the previous episode right before the new one. So guys out there, take a look at it. If you're not into Tough, that's cool as well. We're not going to be talking too much about it. We didn't talk too much about the other ones, but it still is some news. So I thought I'd drop that real quick. Some big news to myself. Been a big Marcin Held fan for a while. He signed with the UFC last week, or maybe it could have been this week. He's if you don't watch Bellator, he's a submission wizard. He's 22-4 with 12 subs, 4 KOs, and he's 16-3. He was 16-3 in Bellator. Only losses were to Michael Chandler and Will Brooks. Lost to Dave Jansen as well, but he defeated him in a recent rematch. So now the UFC is taking a big name from Bellator along with Will Brooks previously. Jay, what are your thoughts?
Marcin Held, great fighter, and I know you've been a big fan of his for a long time, so I'm glad to see him in the UFC as well. Yeah,
I'm not sure, well, I guess I can kind of tell you that what they're putting him on, because news came out within 2 days of his signing the dotted line. He's taking on Diego Sanchez, and Kelvin Gastelum is going to be taking on George Masvidal at UFC Fight Night 98. That's going to be in Mexico. That Fight Night 98 is also the Tough Latin America 3 finale. It's going to be in Mexico. Tony Ferguson versus Rafael Dos Anjos is the main event. Now we got Marcin Held versus Diego Sanchez and Kelvin Gastelum versus Jorge Masvidal. That's a great fight card already right there for me.
Smart fight move by the UFC for putting Marcin Held against Diego Sanchez, a notable name in the division, for the organization. Very smart move there. I say Held capitalizes on this and beats Sanchez. Sanchez just isn't who he used to be. And Kelvin Gastelum versus Jorge Masvidal, awesome fight too. Agree with you. These 2 fights alone make it worth the watch.
I'm going Gastelum here, but it won't be easy as Masvidal is never an easy fight for anybody. I'm going held big over here for over Sanchez. I'm going to echo a little bit and build off what you talked about, where it's a good fight for held. Sanchez is the name, and he's fallen off, and so if held can beat a big name, he's instantly now to people who didn't know him. Well, sadly, Joe Rogan won't be doing this card because it's not a numbered pay-per-view. But all the hype they'll be giving Marcin Held, he gets a win over Diego Sanchez. Now the fans will be looking at him if they hadn't already.
Yeah.
Some sad news, in my opinion. I think everybody's opinion, if you haven't heard it yet, Joe Silva is retiring. Matchmaker of the Stars, according to Joe Rogan, if you watch any of the weigh-ins. Joe Silva has been with the UFC since 2001. Yes, that's 2001, pre-Zuffa. And now it looks like the rumor is that because of the buyout of the recent buyout, he made quite a bit of change. Yeah. And he's going to hang it up, spend more time with his family. And something I read also is he's always had a hard time with firing guys, letting guys go. It really bugs him. Not bugs him, but look,
it bothered him, of course.
My father was always in that position as well as being a manager in his type of company. I would never see it because my dad would never really show a lot of weakness in front of me, but my mom would tell me about how it would just destroy him to have to let somebody go who this is their livelihood. This is what they do, and then now they can't do it anymore. So yeah, Joe Silva, you've done your job for a long time, my man. So I have fun in retirement.
Yeah, I agree, man. It's going to be sad to see him go, but all things must come to an end at some point.
Yeah, there's no talk. Well, there's talk, but there's nothing official on who's going to take over for him. I don't know if Sean Shelby is just going to have to pick up the brunt of the work, or if they're going to bring somebody else over and just move Sean Shelby up, as Sean Shelby does all the featherweight and below. So
they can give us a call and we'll go ahead and make fights for him for some decent change.
I think we do a pretty good job of that. First, we got to go get Dada 5000 from the Bellator.
Oh, yeah,
and then
definitely.
We get down to work.
Oh, yeah.
So
Ricardo Lamas, Dada 5000. We can put great matchups here.
I'll find my on my Rolodex where Tank Abbott's at. But speaking of big guys that really know how to punch, Derek Lewis is going to be fighting Marcin Tybura. That's going to be the co-main event of UFC Fight Night 97 in the Philippines on October 15th, sorry guys. That's going to be the BJ Penn versus Ricardo Lamas, the main event of that card we've already talked about. But yeah, Derek Lewis. I didn't know too much about Tybura. I had to look him up. He's 14-2 with 6 KOs, 6 submissions, so he's pretty well-rounded, but he's 1-1 the UFC. I know he just won his last fight by KO. I think it was a head kick, but he did just get his first win in the UFC. So we'll see what happens there. I'm excited for that fight.
Yeah, me too. Fighting in the Philippines, that's pretty awesome that they're going out there, being that I lived there for 7 years when I was younger. Yeah. But pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think it's been 2 or 3 years since their last fight card out there, so they were due for sure. And last part of news here, Gunnar Nelson is fighting Dong Hyun Kim. They're going to headline the UFC Fight Night 99 card. That's in Northern Ireland. That's going to be in November. On the 19th. So you're looking at a guy in Gunnar Nelson who's just outside the top 10 versus Dong Hyun Kim, who is, who's always been, a perennial guy in the welterweight division. I don't know who to pick quite yet. I know we're rolling pretty quickly here, Jay. We'll probably save it for a different time, but that's a great fight. I'm really excited for that.
And I just want to touch on a bit you saying that Gunnar Nelson's just outside the top 10. If you would have told me that 2 years ago, I wouldn't have believed you. I would think that he'd already be in the mix, top 5 already by now.
Yeah.
He just, like Lashley, it seems like he hasn't panned out. And it's not that he's not good. He's great at what he does. It's just the competition and just the sport in itself is just growing. So
yeah, he lost to Damian Maia. Didn't get finished by Damian Maia, by the way, unlike some of the guys. And then I think he had a tough fight against Rick Story. I'm not sure who it was, but it was a fight that he probably should have won, but the judges, they flipped their coin again, and they gave him the loss. I think that's why he's just outside the top 10.
Yeah. Anyway, is that it for news?
That's it for news. Nothing new.
All right. Let's go ahead and get into some picks, Mike.
We pick 'em.
Let's go ahead and get into UFC 203. Of course, we have Miocic versus Overeem. Who you got there?
I'm going Miocic staunchly. I think that Miocic is too fast, too athletic. It doesn't mean that Overeem is a bumbling buffoon in there. I don't think that at all. He still has KO power as well, so this could go either way. But I just think that Miocic is just going to be too fast, and he's going to probably get a knockout in the second round.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Miocic as well, but don't sleep on Overeem. I will say that he can throw a nasty kick or something and KO Miocic in no time. So. Yeah, this one is actually harder to pick than I thought, but I got to go with Miocic.
Yeah, and this card actually is come along pretty well. I'm actually excited for this card for some of the matchups as well. Not just this one. There's also this matchup here: Fabricio Verdum versus Travis Brown. Travis Brown's just coming off that loss to Cain Velasquez in UFC 200. That was a pretty brutal loss, but I guess he wants to get back in there. They're not giving him any easy fights, Jay. You can go from Cain Velasquez and Fabricio Verdum.
No, they're not. And I think, here he loses again. I think Verdum is just the better all-around fighter. He can win it on the feet. He can win it on the ground.
Yeah, Verdum's too well-rounded. And Brown's been trading his wins and losses lately. I'm really not sure why he's getting this fight. But he's still a tough guy. Still a tough guy with power, so... will it go the same way as Cain Velasquez fight did for him? Probably not. But certainly Fabricio Verdum better not come in with out of shape like he did against Miocic.
Yeah, I agree.
Uriah Faber facing Jimmy Rivera. Obviously, we're both big Uriah Faber fans here, big Team Alpha Male fans. I didn't really know who Jimmy Rivera was when they gave Uriah this fight. So I looked him up. Rivera's 19-1 with 4 TKOs, 2 submissions. He's 3-0 in the UFC, which is pretty darn good, and 4-0 in his 2 stints in Bellator. He had 2 different runs in Bellator. But, if I'm going to go with somebody, I'm going to go with Uriah until he actually loses a top fight, that's for the belt or, outside of his current weight class. So I'm going Faber, but is this going to be the time that Faber finally loses to somebody that's, is it his time, Jay? I'm asking you, I guess. Or not his time, maybe I should say.
I think that Faber's probably going to pull this one out, and he's going to win by decision, though. I think it's going to go the distance with Jimmy. Jimmy's went through a lot of decisions.
Yeah.
So I think that's where it's going to go.
Yeah, Jimmy's getting a decision. A little Seinfeld humor for you. CM Punk versus Mickey Gall.
Oh.
If you guys aren't familiar with CM Punk or Mickey Gall, well, I wasn't familiar with CM Punk because I don't watch pro wrestling anymore, but I do know Mickey Gall. Mickey Gall's 2-0. Got 2 submissions and 1-0 in the UFC. That's right. The guy has 2 fights only, but he's part of Dana White looking for a fight. The kid, and I say kid because he's a young guy, got a good head on his shoulders, got some good fundamentals. I really like this kid. Like I said, 2-0, 2 submissions, 1-0 in the UFC. He's fighting CM Punk, pro wrestling great, I guess. Will be his first fight in the UFC. His first fight ever in mixed martial arts.
Yeah, and that's an issue I have here. It's, here's a guy he's older. I'm not sure exactly what his age is, but I think he's like 36 or 37.
I wouldn't be surprised, yeah.
Okay. He's older. He's never fought before, a real fight anyway. He's been in WWE and promotions like that. I believe it's WWE. Anyway, professional wrestling, the fake stuff. Now, here he is coming into MMA, Mike, and the guy did it, I guess, as smart as he could by taking 2 years off when he signed and trying to get into learning mixed martial arts. But trying to learn mixed martial arts in 2 years is like trying to learn every language there is, in that span of time for us. It's just crazy. You're not going to be able to learn. You might get the fundamentals down for things, but to try to learn everything, it's just crazy. I don't know. I think that putting him against a guy like Mickey Gall is smart for the UFC, but bringing CM Punk along to fight, to me, is just a publicity stunt.
Yeah, it is. It's a name that they were able to pick up. CM Punk said, "Hey, I'd love to fight for you guys," and they saw dollar signs, which they should. But this is not Brock Lesnar though. This is not somebody who, destroyed opponents in amateur wrestling and collegiate wrestling. This guy, like you said, has had no skills coming in. He has as many skills as I do have sitting on the couch watching these fights.
Yeah.
But he has a silver lining, I guess, and that is he's trained with Duke Rufus in that camp, with Anthony Pettis, and he's a killer and stuff like that. So he's got, at least it's not like he's going down to the strip mall, near the Walmart to MMA and more, and and getting what I'm saying. He's got a good camp, so this is more of an interesting fight to watch. We've got so many different fights you watch, which is who's the best. Or, if this guy's going to come back, or that kind. There's so many different types of fights, I'm trying to say, that you watch for. And this is more purely just an interesting fight. What's going to happen?
Yeah. Are they calling him CM Punk? Or
they are. I wanted to put in his real name, but everywhere I go on the website, UFC website, it's CM Punk.
Okay, so that tells you right there. They're just building off that name. They're just trying to collect a check off of him. Honestly, that's what I see. Now, if he turns out to be a decent fighter, I'll eat crow on that. But I really don't think he will be. He may be decent, but I don't think he's going to go anywhere.
Yeah, I think if he wins a couple of fights, it's possible he can beat Mickey Gall. I don't think he will. Remember, Mickey Gall is just 2-0, but for the two fights he's had, one outside the UFC and one inside the UFC, he has looked really good. So we'll see. Now, Jay, do you want to interject that thought you had maybe on the last podcast if someone hasn't listened to the previous podcast about why you think it took so long for CM Punk to finally fight?
No, what do you mean?
Okay, I'm pretty sure it was you who said that maybe you thought that it wasn't that he was hurt, that he just wasn't coming around.
Oh yeah. That's exactly what I said, and that's what it is. The guy just needed time, and even 2 years is not enough time, but. Hey, it is what it is. He's here to fight now, apparently. But coming in under the name CM Punk, it just tells me right away this guy's not taking it as seriously as he should, in my opinion. Come on. Why would you come in under that name? Come in under your real name. Be real here. This is real fights.
Well, he's really trying to get it together. So, good luck to him. But I wish he would have came in his regular name and told the UFC no. I don't know his regular name offhand. I have heard it, but two people though that have been doing this for a while and are fantastic at it. The last fight on the card is Joanne Calderwood. She's fighting Jessica Andrade. Calderwood, of course, 11-1, 5 KO TKOs. I probably didn't have to say that. She's pretty popular. But Andrade, who's also popular, but maybe not so much so. I do have her stats in front of me. 14-5 with 6 submissions and 5 KO TKOs. So she's a pretty good, well-rounded finisher. But as of late, she's traded her wins as losses in her last 4 fights.
Yeah.
Calderwood, that one just staying on her record, I believe, to Marina Monroe's. But Calderwood looks fantastic against Letourneau in her last fight. Mm-hmm. So this is going to be a great way, I think, to really start off the card.
Yeah, me too. To go back to CM Punk, Mickey Gall, if I didn't get my point across or my pick across well enough, I'm picking Mickey Gall for sure. I don't think I said that, but I was alluding to that by saying I don't think CM Punk is going to be ready.
Right.
Mickey Gall is going to take that fight, and it could be over.
Go by submission.
Yeah, it could be over quick. It really could.
Yeah, I didn't pick by how, and I'm going to go submission in the second. No, submission in the first, unless Punk shows you something different.
Yeah. Yeah, and Calderwood versus Andrade, great fight. Calderwood looked spectacular in her last fight. I'm going Calderwood.
Yeah.
But against Andrade, Andrade is a great fighter too. So it might go the distance here. So I might take Calderwood in 3.
Yeah, and Calderwood could be really close to a title fight if she gets this win. So 2 more fight cards left, but there's really only a couple fights on them really worth of note. Bellator 161, that's going to be the week after. And that is going to be Czech Congo taking on Tony Johnson. If you're not familiar with Johnson, he's 10-2 with 5 KO TKOs and is 3-0 in his 2 stints in Bellator. He fought once early on, back when Bellator wasn't really big, and then he's come back now and won his last 2. A couple of things that are interesting when I looked him up. He lost to Daniel Cormier in 2010, but then he beat Derek Lewis and Tim Sylvia back-to-back the next year. So I just found that pretty interesting. So Tony Johnson is a legit guy, especially against an aging Czech Congo. Jay, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I just looked him up, and you're right. He does look familiar, but he's a big man. Czech Congo, an aging Czech Congo, better watch out. This guy looks pretty tough. Decent record. Yeah, but here I'm still going to go with the veteran from the UFC, Czech Congo. I think he's going to get it done here.
Yeah. Also on the card, I'm not sure if it's the co-main event or not. I believe it is, though. Joe Warren facing Serwan Kakai. Kakai is 12-4 with 6 submissions and 4 TKOs. So the guy knows how to finish fights fairly well roundedly. And he was actually 1-1 in the UFC before he moved on to Bellator. But he is 0-1 in Bellator. So a decent guy to put up against, hopefully, Joe Warren's last fight, as Jay and I have talked about in the past. I didn't really think about who to pick here. I just kind of leaned towards Joe Warren, but you know what? Maybe I'm going to pick Kakai here. Yeah. So at some point, Joe Warren's going to have to fully fall off. So I'm going to go with Kakai here. But, I'm not going to send Joe Warren out to pasture, horribly. So I think it's going to be Kakai by decision.
I think it might even be by submission. I think Joe Warren looked terrible in this last fight. He didn't look very good at all. I think Kakai, being a younger, stronger guy, I think he's going to win this fight. I don't think Joe Warren's all there anymore. Yeah. So, I don't know.
Yeah, well, the last couple fights we'll talk about is UFC Fight Night 94. That's right the day after Bellator. That's going to be on September 17th. Michael Johnson versus Dustin Poirier. Love that fight. That is going to be fantastic. I'm not even going to worry about rolling off any of the stats or anything for these guys. If you don't know them, you should, because they're awesome. Jay, who you picking?
With the success that Dustin Poirier has been having, I'm going Poirier.
Yep, I agree.
I think Johnson sort of plays too safe. He's been playing too safe lately. He's been not playing to his strengths, the wrestling. A lot of these wrestlers, Mike, we've said it time and time again, they steer away from it, and he's one of them.
Yeah, and Dustin Poirier has just looked fantastic ever since his loss to McGregor. He's like 4-0. I don't know if he's finished all 4 of those fights, but he's finished most of them. I think he's just on that rocket to the top. I mean, he's already in the top 10. Yeah. He might even be in the top 5. I'm not sure.
And I think moving a weight class also helped him too.
Yeah. Johnson has just been winning and losing over his last few fights. I can't take my I've put off the pedal for Johnson. I don't think he's going away or anything like that. No. I just think this is Dustin Poirier's fight all day.
I agree, 100%. He's going to take it. Might even finish it.
Yeah. You know what? I'm gonna, having said what I said about Johnson, I'm just gonna go ahead and say Poirier by decision. And then the final fight we'll talk about, and it's also on UFC Fight Night 94. Uriah Hall versus Derek Brunson. I'm really excited about to see this fight, mostly because Derek Brunson, after he beats Sam Alvey, he's been hurt since that fight, and to take out Sam Alvey the way he did was such a big thing to do that I'm excited to see what he does next.
Yeah, I didn't realize that Derek Brunson was hurt since that fight. Do you recall what happened?
I don't remember. Maybe he fought one time since. I don't know, but I realized he was supposed to fight Anderson Silva at UFC 198. I believe the Brazilian card.
It could have been an injury in training or something, but Derek Brunson has definitely been out of the limelight for quite some time. So it's good to see him back because he looked great against Sam Alvey. You're right about that. And Uriah Hall being up against a guy like Uriah, it's going to be a good test for him. But also, it goes the other way. Derek's a great test for Uriah. So we'll see what happens here. But I'm going to go. I'm going to go with Derek Brunson, only because Uriah Hall is hit and miss with his mindset. So Derek Brunson.
Hall's 12-6 in his career, and it's just, to me, I'm leaning towards Hall because I think he needs this win, and he's got the tools. You're right about his head. Is his head going to be in this game now? I think he just lost to Robert Whittaker by decision.
Yeah.
Which is, Whittaker's no slouch, but he's also not a name that if you pulled out of a hat of 30 MMA names that are great fighters, Whittaker wouldn't be in that hat. So I'm going to lean towards Hall and just by decision, but just know that it's going to be a fantastic fight. So that's what we got, man. We got Fighter of the Month. It's August is now done. We're in September. So I'll go first this time, I guess, Jay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I rolled through all the names and everybody who fought and what they did inside, outside the cage. Some great finishes, some great defeats or losses, but looking great. I almost went Nate Diaz in a loss because I thought he won, and he looked fantastic coming back from those 3 knockdowns. But I'm going to go ahead and go with Anthony Johnson. Just a quick knockout, just proving that he is still the #1 contender and a future champion. I just got to go Anthony Johnson. And also what he said on the mic. I mean, he then called out the fans saying, look, don't boo this man. Don't boo Daniel Cormier. Yeah. This guy's a champ. Don't boo him, And talking about how him and Glover, they don't have any shenanigans. They just get in there and fight. So that's Anthony Johnson's my Fighter of the Month.
Yeah, he showed a lot of respect on the mic, and I appreciated that as a fan of the sport and of him. And you know what? And that's why I'm going to another man who showed a lot of respect on the mic for my Fighter of the Month. Currently, he's on a 6-fight win streak. He's beaten Gunnar Nelson, Matt Brown, and now Carlos Condit. Yes, I am talking about the human backpack himself, Damian Maia. Damian Maia has just looked great in his last 6 fights, and I think he's on a tear, Mike. And what he talked about, in the post-fight interview was just awesome and made me like him even more. So he is my Fighter of the Month.
Yeah, man, we are. I know we picked different guys. We picked him for the same reason, so that's awesome.
Yeah. So there was a lot of guys to choose from. Nate Diaz again. I echo your thoughts, and people already know we both thought that he won that fight. And we're in the minority for sure. A lot of people think that we're wrong there, but I just didn't see it that way.
Well, the people I've talked to, though, and just as the people I've worked with and a couple customers I've talked to, I work at a grocery store, people, so I come in contact with the public quite a bit. It's about 50-50 for me as of now, but, you know, it's not a controlled study.
Yeah. So anyway, we are at the end of our show now. So, Mike, if you want to plug anything, go ahead and do so now.
Yeah, so just continue to take a look at the Facebook page. I'm writing there every day. And, of course, Jay always pops on his thoughts on the articles and what's happening as well. So you get both of our thoughts on there. Check us out on the Twitter. Actually, if you go to MMAThinkTankPodcast.com, you'll actually get pushed to the Facebook site. In the future, Jay and I have talked. We might get a website going. But right now, we're still getting our feet wet. We're on Twitter, Jay. MMA Think Tank Podcast. Sorry, MMA Think Tank PC.
Yes,
is the Twitter. And Jay and I both have our Twitters. I'm at Mikey Jiggles. That's MikeYJiggles.
Yes.
Jay, what is yours?
And I'm at Gene Wilder's Hair. Yes, the late, great Gene Wilder. Rest in peace. Yeah, so that's where we are on Twitter. And also we have email, MMAThinkTank@gmail.com. And you can phone us. Phone us out there at 925-237-1296. Give us a call. Let us know your thoughts. We'd love to hear from you.
And real quick, Mr. Tony Whitford, who one of my customers at work, was wondering when we were going to have another podcast. Hopefully, Tony, you listen to this. Hopefully you liked it, and you give us a call, or next time you see me, for sure, let me know what you thought, good and bad, because we're the MMA Think Tank here, everybody. We want everybody's thoughts. We want not just on who won or who should have won, but what makes the fights great, and move on from there.
Yeah. And, eventually I'd like to do some live shows as well so we could take calls and stuff, and that would be pretty interesting, Mike.
Yeah, as long as people can keep calling, coming to Facebook and liking the page and going looking at our Twitter as soon as the numbers are there. And please, if you are liking the show, go to iTunes and let us know.
Yeah.
So we can know what's going on there. Because, look, Jay and I, we're going to be doing this show for a long, long time. And so we just love doing it anyway. So we would just love to hear from you guys.
Yep. We love mixed martial arts, and we're always going to be talking about it no matter what. So anyway, Mike, that ends today's show. So let's go ahead and sign off here, and we will talk to you guys in another 2 weeks.
Hey, you guys have a good one.